Tonight's lecture is part of the Urban Cultures engagement, of which Martino Tattara is the curator, and he will explain or frame a little bit the lecture within this context. So maybe Martino, I can invite you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Lilet, for this first introduction. I am indeed Martino Tattara, the curator of the Urban Culture Engagement. And I'm also very happy of having the chance to welcome Arif Hasan to our school tonight. Before giving the floor to Asiya Sadiq for her introduction of the guest of this evening, I would like to very briefly explain the framework within which the lecture of tonight is organized. Urban culture is, as just recalled by Lilet, one of the 4+1 engagement of our Master of Architecture. And the design studio that are part of urban cultures and that every semester are organized are studios that are primarily concerned with issues such as migration, urbanization, displacement, changing condition of labor and production, the relationship with infrastructures. And to tackle this issue, the precondition of each of the urban culture studio is to understand the forces that are shaping our cities and our urbanized territories. Despite the diverse range of geographical frameworks, approaches, and even pedagogies, all the urban culture design studio expand the traditional scope of an architectural project and contribute to a larger rethinking of the field of actions, or let's say the field of operation of the disciplines we are all concerned with, such as architecture, urban design, but also urban planning, as I think we will mostly be discussing tonight. Since a few years, within urban cultures, a series of design studios are tackling the condition of metropolis under processes of hypertransformations, such as cities such as Buenos Aires in Argentina, Shenzhen in China, and Karachi in Pakistan, cities that have been studied and investigated primarily thanks to the background, interest, and also personal relationship that our teaching staff has with each of these cities. Among these, the city of Karachi in Pakistan has been the focus of a series of design studios led by Asiya Sadiq, a work which has been developed over several years and that is also the focus of an exhibition that was supposed to be just open this week at our faculty in the ground floor of our campus in Brussels, but that due to the current restriction will hopefully be open after Easter, and that each of you will have the chance to visit if you will have the possibility to come to our campus in Brussels. It is therefore in the framework or in the occasion of this, let's say, forthcoming exhibition and the work done on Karachi that we thought to somehow celebrate this work by inviting Arif Hasan for his lecture tonight. And having said that, I would like to give the floor, the virtual floor, to Asiya to say a few words possibly about the exhibition that we are all going to be able to see very soon, and to introduce more properly the guest of tonight.
Thank you, Martino. Thank you for explaining Karachi Studio and the whole set of ideas that we've been developing there. And indeed, it's my pleasure to introduce my teacher from Karachi, Pakistan, place, his office and the city where I've learned, I would say, most of what I know about the underlying conditions of architecture and the making of architecture. And it, of course, greatly influences my teaching and what I bring to share with my students. Arif Hasan has, do you guys see the slides? Okay, so.
No, you have to share the screen first.
Okay, I will share the screen. Okay, yeah, that's obviously something I didn't know about this program. Um, so to get back on track, sorry for this technical glitch. The way I wanted to introduce Arif Hasan was not to get into where he studied and, you know, the usual sort of biography of it, because that all of you can find on the internet quite easily. I wanted to kind of present him and his influence on the city. So he's been an architect, an urbanist, a teacher, a writer, and an influencer for the city of Karachi. He has influenced 3 generations of architects and urban planners who have grown up, studied, and working in the city. His work, his research, and his thinking has also greatly influenced a lot of projects and policies to do with informal urbanism, because as I will show through a few slides later about Karachi, Karachi is a city of, you know, like contradictions and cities of city of opposites. So you have the formal side, the master plans, and the formal design city, or the city, how it has developed over the last 70 years. But you have a very strong and parallel informal sector. And Arif Hasan was probably one of the first researchers, architects who started working on this phenomenon. And it was initially, you know, through his research with some other I would say architects, I don't think necessarily from Karachi. I remember Dr. van der Linden from Holland was one of the earliest researchers on this phenomenon in the city, and Arif Hasan collaborated. And all of that has greatly influenced what we know as the Orangi Pilot Project, the Urban Resource Center, the Asian Coalition of Housing Rights based in Thailand, departments of architecture and planning which are in the city, and a lot of policies to do with low-income settlements and the planning of the city. It has also influenced the planning and research related design thinking in the city as well. Karachi, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, is one of the largest cities in South Asia. It's one of the fastest growing ones. It has a lot of communities, old migrant communities, and it has new ones who are arriving in the city all the time. It has different forms of habitation in which different groups belonging to different income and ethnicities have been settled for many, many years. And it's also a city which has a space both for the poor and the rich. And there's a constant negotiation, political, economic, social, which goes on in the city for a right to the city, and also to do with the fact of what the aspiration of the city is. So what we see on the left hand side, this kind of island development, is what the formal sector's view on the city is. And the reality of it is what you see with the low-income settlement image that I've added over here, where you see low-income settlements which have consolidated over years, and there's millions of people who inhabit these settlements and make the city what it is, and contribute to a great extent to the making and working of Karachi city. There's big infrastructure projects, and there's still inner city chaos, traffic issues. So, you know, the city kind of is constantly juggling between these mega projects, which are the aspirations of the formal sector and also needed for the city. So like sometimes really outlandish ideas of bringing in bullet trains and rapid transport, whereas an average family is still very much using the two-wheeler, and you see thousands, hundreds of thousands of motorcycles on the streets. You have malls coming up, but you still have a bazaar, our traditional market system, which is very much there and you know, catering to the both the formal and informal sectors, and also to every section of the society. Then you have new recreational developments, but you have very poorly maintained open spaces amongst, an average settlement in the city. All of this, of course, is coming through a process of transformation, and a very fast transformation. I'm not going to go into the details of this because I'm very sure that Arif Hasan is going to talk about all of these underlying reasons and underlying, causes of how the city of Karachi has grown and what the Karachi, different aspects represent. But this was just to give a kind of a condensed idea on the different aspects. And then the challenges, it has led to many, many architectural and urban challenges for the city. So environmental issues, conflicting urban cultures, areas with security issues, changing and fast communities, political riots have also been a part of the scenario of the city, divided, kind of divided city, ghettoization, evictions, but also very high-end developments and so on. To do with the Karachi studios that I've been running, like kind of 7 cycles at the Faculty of Architecture, I tried to respond to the situation by working with my students on it for 7 cycles. And we tried to look at the city from a distance. And the idea was to kind of bring to fore a new way of looking at spaces, and kind of bringing in what we traditionally have always had, which are, like streets have been one of our most used and most animated public spaces, which, if designed only for mobility, of course, do not perform the function that they could in a very dense and rapidly growing city. Then density is another issue. Do we build out or do we build up? What do we do with the inner city to compare to the periphery? Then reconciling tradition and modernity, gender and community. Very specifically, certain typologies like rooftops, courtyards, stairs, staircases as community spaces, social upward mobility, and so on. So what I have done with my students over the last 7 cycles and colleagues is that we have each time picked up one of these thematics and tried to look at them with a kind of new perspective. And for me, it was a very, I would say, a very good experience and a very eye-opening experience to see how outsiders can view a city they have actually never even visited. So it has been a remote studio, which relied a lot on my knowledge, things that I have learned from Arif Hasan and my other teachers and my other students in Karachi. And we relied also a lot on resource persons, quite a few of my friends and colleagues from Karachi who may be in the audience even. And we decided, kind of to work over using different digital means. And I think the results have been very gratifying. So this year decided to bring all these results together in the form of posters for an exposition, but also a video and a Karachi Studio Expo book, which I think has come out to be really much more dense than we expected it to be, and hopefully will become a very useful reference and a document for students who have participated, students who will be participating in such studios, whether they are in Karachi or elsewhere. And what we bring to the fore are these new thematics which deal with issues which Arif Hasan will most probably be talking to you in more detail. So that's to do with, like the introduction of Arif Hasan, his influence on the city of Karachi, architects and urban planners like me, and, what we have done with that knowledge in different ways. and a little bit about the Karachi Expo. And we hope that you will visit the Expo and enjoy it when it's up. Thank you. Arif Sir?
Yes, Asiya.
So finally, over to you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the university for having invited me. I'm not a stranger to this university. I've come here many times, thanks to my friend, Professor Hans, whom I've known now for a very long time. And also thank you, Asiya, for this introduction. I didn't know I was responsible for so much evil, but in any case, thank you. I would like to, before I begin, you mentioned Jan van der Linden. I would like to acknowledge the enormous amount that I learned from him. He was really a pioneer in the study of the informal sector in Karachi, and for many of us, he was a mentor. So I would like to acknowledge that. He was from the Free University Amsterdam. Now, what I will try to do, I hope I can be brief. What I'll try to do is to pinpoint maybe 10 issues, maybe less, which really help in shaping the cities. You have master plans, you have sector plans, you have land use plans, you have long-term development plans, all that. And they all sound very good. In South Asia, the British left us with a tradition. We live on the ruins of the British Empire. They left us with a tradition of having a quote-unquote master plan every 10 years. So we have that beautiful master plan. We have it every 10 years. But what is it that really shapes the city? It's not that master plan that shapes the city. There are many other forces that really shape the city. So point number one is, what planning did not provide, Karachi and its citizens created and acquired for themselves. Because the city is a living thing. If you don't give it what it needs, it gets it. At independence, the city was 450,000. And within, let's say, I would say 5 to 6 months of independence, we received 600,000 people, larger than the size of the city itself. So all our emphasis, and we kept receiving them subsequently, all our emphasis has been on housing people. It's all about housing. So really, housing has become a culture. It's something that planners have been obsessed with, and then subsequent migrations. It's today a city of over 20 million, and it was only 450 at the time of independence. Now, the result of this is that developments took place wherever there was space, wherever there was need. For example, our port activity increased from 2.1 million tons annually to over 45 million tons today. It required cargo handling spaces, it required storage spaces, warehousing, trucking stations. They were not planned. They grew up and developed in the old town where the wholesale markets were. And they destroyed a lot of our very beautiful heritage and created a lot of chaos. So, in the same way, bus terminals, bus depots, bus workshops, they developed in an ad hoc manner wherever there was space. Even housing that we were obsessed with, we were not able to provide. And so informal housing was the result. So 62% of Karachi still lives in informal housing. So that was point number one. Point number two, the city has a formal land use plan, which is not followed. Instead, there is an informal speculation promoting plan, which is being continually implemented and updated. So all the plans of Karachi, as I've said, have had plans of land use and very nice plans. But what has happened? What has happened is that there is a strong nexus between developers, bureaucrats, and politicians. And that nexus is all about extracting maximum value out of land. So, as a result, building bylaws and zoning regulations are violated to increase constructed square footage. Major corridors of the city are commercialized, increasing congestion. Through ingenious methods, the area plot ratio is increased. And for all this, the authorities are given discretionary powers. So on the one hand, you have the beautiful plans, and on the other hand, you have these discretionary powers that make it possible for a parallel land use plan for extracting value, maximum value out of land. And a manner in which you can extract maximum value out of land is through a process of speculation. So in Karachi today, you have about 300,000 lots of land lying vacant. You have approximately 120,000 apartments lying vacant. And you have about 200,000 apartments under construction. So you have this huge world of informality, of speculation, sorry, which is being promoted by this bureaucrat, developer, and politician nexus. So I think this informal speculative land use plan is what is really shaping the city, and not the plans that were prepared by planners for what the city should look like or what the city should be. Point number three is that Karachi's land use plan, I mean the speculative plan, has severe environmental repercussions. It has swallowed up about 2,800 villages that existed in the periphery. What became of the residents of these villages, we do not know. Most of them were given sums of money which they had never seen before, and they quit their villages and went away and became poorer as a result. If they resisted, they were coerced or bullied by the use of police to leave their homes. And as a result, large areas of Karachi, which should have been protected green areas, lost their trees and lost their cover. And a city which, until 1985, 70% of Karachi's vegetables were produced by Karachi's hinterland, by Karachi's rural areas. Today, not even 10% is produced by Karachi's rural areas, and which is a great loss to the agricultural sector and the agricultural communities that used to live here. In our plans, we had various plans for uplifting these areas so that they could produce more. They could produce more dairy products, they could produce more agricultural products, but that did not happen. The only thing we increased in production was poultry, which we export from Karachi to other areas. because poultry does not require space. You can have large barns in which there are thousands of chickens being artificially produced, and that is what happens. So, what is the future of those areas of Karachi, those rural areas which are still uh, in existence? The other factor here is that these urban areas that in these rural areas that were urbanized are huge in size. For example, just to give you an example, one huge settlement, it's called the Bahria town, is almost as large as Manhattan and will accommodate 3 million people. Where those 3 million rich people are going to come from to be accommodated, we do not know. But that settlement, that township, has wiped out drainage channels, geological formations, orchards, heritage archaeological sites, simply because it had the power of the nexus behind it. Similarly, today there are attempts at turning some islands in the Bay of Karachi into cities, island cities. A 50 billion rupee plan has been prepared for them. There is a lot of civil society opposition to it. And in the past, such opposition has sometimes succeeded, and we hope that in this case also it might succeed. The other element that I wanted to point out to is the fourth issue. The courts of law may have interpreted the law correctly, but their decisions have promoted inequity and injustice. Law does not mean justice. According to our laws, encroachers, those who habitate a place without permission which is not their own, have to be ejected. The laws provide for that. The courts want those laws implemented. But the fact is that those whom they are evicting had no choice but to encroach because no land or housing was provided to them and that they are exceedingly poor. Similarly, with hawkers, they can be assimilated under planning, but you remove them because the law says so. So the law is the criminal over here because it is creating injustice. After all, in South Africa, you had apartheid. That was a law passed by the parliament. So I think laws have to be looked at differently from a more ethical or moral point of view. It is extremely important. And over here, the term that is often used for public good. So you evict or acquire land for public good. But we need to redefine what public good means in the larger interest of the community. I think that's extremely important, the redefinition of public good. So that was the fourth point that I wanted to put before you. The fifth point is extremely important, which is that an absence of micro-level understanding promotes inappropriate development. If you don't know what the micro-level understanding is, how people relate to each other, how they acquire land, how they build homes, how they deal with the establishment, what their aspirations are, then how can you plan for them? And it is interesting to note that the planners who make these plans do not have this knowledge. This knowledge exists with median level planners in government circles who deal with maintenance of services, and they are never consulted in the planning process. They are never a part of it. They are asked to implement it, but they are not a part of that process. Much of the consultants who are appointed for this purpose, they are indulge in what I called development tourism. You come for a little while, roam around, ask questions, have a questionnaire. On that, look at the maps, look at Google images, and there you are. You forget that Google images don't tell you anything except the size of the house. They don't tell you who lives inside, how many families, how many households, how many kitchens. The kitchen is a home. So that uh, is a major problem. And in working with the Urangi pilot project, I discovered that we could develop programs and projects, and we did, at 1/10 the cost of internationally funded projects. So uh, that and Government of Pakistan projects are also not only internationally funded projects. Funded is the wrong word. They were loans. They were not grants. So I think that is something that has to be understood, that this micro level understanding is very important. And here I would like to talk about NGOs a little bit in this context. Uh, most NGOs have an understanding of micro level issues and they cater to them. However, NGO projects are a drop in this huge ocean of South Asian demand for houses and infrastructure. The project I have worked with and helped set up, the Urangi Pilot Project, it probably has one of the largest outreach programs, and that is only 3 million to 3 million population, whereas Pakistan's population is 200 million. And there is some things that stops these programs from becoming national programs. They remain programs that the state shows off about. Look, we have this program. How wonderful it is. There are programs that are presented in various urban conferences, that are presented in various seminars. But the fact is that they remain showpieces. And where they are applied, that is at the most at the sector or city level, not at the national level. So I think these are important issues. And the larger the city, the less important the program, because in that city you have a parallel formal sector operating, which is extremely powerful. So I think this is one issue that I'll come back to. And the other thing that I'd like to point out here is migration. And this is the sixth thing. The nature of migration has changed. And we can talk about it instead of my giving you a talk on that. If you have any questions, we can talk about it. But simply speaking, the old migrants have become city dwellers and they are not interested to work work with or support the new migrants. The old migrants came with values of rural governance systems, though they were not necessarily egalitarian or secular, but they came with those values. The present migrants come with no values except to make good. They aspire for very different things from what the old migrants aspired to. We can talk about that if you would like to. Another important factor is that neoliberalism has replaced planning with projects. Neoliberalism has promoted the concept of the world-class city. And we have adopted that. It's a city of malls as opposed to local markets, high-rise living as opposed to low-income houses, cineplexes as opposed to cinemas, branding the city for an event or product, gentrifying for tourism, privatizing through build, operate, and transfer projects for development and municipal functions and for public-private enterprises. This has effectively killed the welfare state. Whatever little there was, it no longer exists. And it's true that most bureaucrats and even politicians, I think, do not know the philosophy behind neoliberalism, but they practice it through its vocabulary, like it's not the purpose of government to do, state to do business. It's not the business of the state to do business or public-private partnerships. Through this whole new form of funding infrastructure, the costs of infrastructure have gone up phenomenally. And so we borrow for it, or we operate through build, operate, and transfer basis, which is an incredible drain on our economy. So that reality is also there. And now, especially with the new methods of owning what you finance, we are also losing our sovereignty in the process. So this is no longer in our hands. It's the funding that determines the project. It's not the plan that determines the project. Nothing is truer. This is very true in the case of transport, where instead of buses, you have expensive rail projects. You have BRTs of a very sophisticated nature, which have artificial intelligence, which costs as much as the entire rolling stock does, because it comes from outside, managed from outside, maintained from outside for 5 to 6 years. So there are these issues that are important. The eighth point, just two more, is that the culture of politicians and of government departments determines the nature of projects and their implementation processes. The type of projects that are planned are determined by politicians and bureaucrats. And their thinking, to a very great extent, is determined by their class backgrounds, by the aspirations of that class background, by their close association with the West, both in terms of education and also in terms of aspirations. So the copying of Western models is a very important part of determining the nature of projects. And I think that is where we have tried very hard to say to the government that yes, projects have replaced planning, that yes, there are these aspirations, but can we have some criteria of determining projects? And we have proposed some criteria. If you ask me about it, I will explain to you the criteria that we have proposed. So this is an extremely important aspect. The nature of government, who governs, how, and with what aspirations. And how do you change this is extremely difficult. Also, planning processes have been simplified to an extent that is ridiculous, simply because it is quick to do it like this. For example, our BRTs that are being built, 5 in Karachi, have been built on this pattern. Where is the maximum traffic at present? Which corridors use it? So you identify the corridors and you say, all right, this is where we are going to put the BRTs. We have argued for a more comprehensive plan, but that would require time, it would require surveys, would require identifying areas which are roads that are less used, where traffic could be diverted to. It would take a few years. We don't have the few years. We have to do this immediately, quickly, because right now the money is there. So I think that this whole culture is something that we have to deal with uh, and see how we can bring about changes in the process. Ninth point, and this is the second last point, is that Karachi is a city of young people. Not only is it a city of young people, it is also a city where you have very rapidly changing uh, ethics of society, of values of society. For example, in the age group of 15 and 24, which is the most important age group in the census because it is both the present and the future. In this age group, in 1961, 61% of women were married. Today, only 18% of women are married in this age group. 18% men were married, only 7% men are married today in this age group. So you have, for the first time in the history of this city, an overwhelming majority of unmarried adolescents. And this is enough to change gender relations. It is enough to change family structures. And that is exactly what has happened. I won't go into the details of this. One of the consequences of this is that 70%, 72% of the population of Karachi University is women. 87% of medical students are women. The majority of school teachers and an almost equal number of university teachers are women. So this is a rapidly changing world. And with these changes, you require culture, you require entertainment, you require recreation. In the lower and lower middle income settlements in the city where I have worked, you have young men and women who can sing, write, and recite poetry, make interesting videos about their settlements, and they promote their talents on the internet. Their main complaint is that they need space to perform. They need space to gather. They need small funding to make creativity possible. These are things that a fascist state, although it's supposed to be a democracy, but I've just explained to you what the state is like, is not happy with. It does not wish to give a voice to younger people. And the last point, I've spoken too much actually, I hadn't intended to. The last point, and I think the last point is important, that there is a distance between academic theory and reality. And this distance is increasing. I can talk about that later if you want. So with this, I would like to end and leave it to you to decide if you wish to indulge with me in a conversation or say something about all that I have said. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Arif. Super inspiring, really, really interesting. I tried to follow you as fast as I could, And I put it now in the chat that we have the 10 points list of Arif Hasan there. Maybe Asiya, Martino, you join the conversation in the screen. And there were also some questions already prepared from some students. So maybe that was Jeff. So I maybe give the floor now to Jeff de Sadelaar to maybe start a conversation with you, and then we can continue with more. Jeff, are you there? Trying to connect. Yes, works. Hi. You need to open your mic still.
All right, now you can hear me, I think.
Yes, we can.
Yes. Thank you for the lecture, first of all. So, as I understand it, I was thinking many interventions failed ecologically, socially, and maybe even culturally, and possibly due to politics. But my question to you is rather about the architects and the urban planners, because young architects as well as big firms, they have to bring in projects. Do you believe that many of the designs who fail are done by architecture firms that are not always in the position to negotiate, because they need the client sometimes more than the other way around? Or is there a way that firms and urban planners are protected in Karachi to do what's right, basically?
No, I don't think they are protected to do what's right. I think many of them are pressurized to do, or the nature of the projects is such that both in terms of ecology, in terms of social aspects, those projects are questionable. But architects and planners take those projects because their firm has to function somehow or the other. And once you have a big firm, that's the problem with big practices, then you simply can't refuse because you have to keep that firm going. Now, if you have a firm like me who has no employees, well, I don't have a problem. But if I had a big firm, I would have a problem. That's one thing. Secondly, it's the architectural profession that has to struggle for the right type of zoning regulations and bylaws and their implementation. It has to struggle for laying down the criteria for especially social projects and infrastructure projects. It is their job. They have to get together, draft it, lobby for it, fight for it. Unfortunately, our professions do not do that. They are happy with the state of affairs as they are. And even though a young professional might have a lot of sort of enthusiasm, a lot of principles, with the passage of time, that is eroded.
Thank you for your answer.
You have one more, Jeff?
No, that was all. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Caroline Newton.
The failure is the failure of the profession. It's nothing else.
Caroline, hi.
Hi, Lilet. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
I put a question in this chat. First of all, thank you very much, Arif, for a wonderful talk, as always, I think. And I would like you to elaborate a bit more on what you think, even within these complex sort of political settings, we can still do as planners to to achieve sort of a more fair and just use of our urban spaces, especially for the more vulnerable, and especially if you look at the current context of the pandemic.
Well, I think we are living in a period of big changes. When I started working in the 70s, there was no such thing as an NGO. There was no such thing as civil society. You just had communities fighting for their rights, and you had people who were interested in supporting them. But when the period came for safety nets, the whole concept of safety nets gave rise to NGOs and civil society. Now, this period of hope for major changes through the NGOs and civil society is over. Civil society has to fight a very different struggle now, and the struggle is on the policy front. It is about how can we change the functioning of the whole planning process. And COVID has not really provided us with an opportunity. Recently, I was discussing post-COVID planning, and our planners had brilliant ideas. And I said to them, but this is all about the new city, about new plans. And the new city is going to be not even a fraction of the size of the old city. What do you do with the old city? So the focus has to be on the existing city. What is it that you can do with this city? And one of the very important things in this city, in the old city, is its relationship within itself, with the poorer and the richer areas, especially in terms of commerce and economics, and the consolidation of that relationship, so that a more equitable system of governance in some future time, I don't know when, can emerge. So my whole emphasis today is how can we deal with the existing city? Schools, medical facilities, infrastructure, jobs, especially jobs, which we've lost in a big way in Pakistan. Officially 1.5 million jobs in the industrial sector alone. So, I mean, these are issues that are inviting us to think again. We will not be able to do this through NGOs, and we will not be able to do this through civil society. Civil society and NGOs have to fight for correct policies. First, they have to think. After thinking, they have to formulate and struggle. Make these into election issues. That's how I think today.
Thank you very much.
I think very much in this line of thinking, there is a question from Brianna Evert. Maybe you can come in and ask your questions very related to the topic.
Yeah, I was wondering if you could expand on, you mentioned that you give some criteria or propose some criteria to government organizations relating to future planning. So I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about that.
Well, it was a 4-point agenda, basically. One, that projects should respect the ecology of the region in which the city is located. Number two, land use should be determined on environmental and sociological considerations and not on land value alone. We drew up a matrix for this as to where land value, what land value amounts to in this thinking. Number 3, that the projects should serve the interests of the majority, which in our case is lower income and lower middle income groups. And lastly, which is very important for a city like Karachi, in which there is so much diversity. We have 18 languages that are spoken in the city. And there's so much diversity that plans should respect the tangible and intangible heritage of the, not only respect, but promote the tangible and intangible heritage of the communities that live in the city. And we feel that if these 4 points are followed, we might have better projects.
Yeah, I agree. These are all topics that my dissertation group is tackling now, and thinking about how to make city development plans for our specific case. But I was also wondering, because we need to consider the people that we're designing for more than I think architects do now. But how do you involve these people in decision making or in the planning process, like the lower income classes that are the majority?
I think there are a lot of things that people can do by themselves. They're already doing it. What is important is to understand what are they doing and how they are doing it. Who does what and how and why. If you can understand that, it's a tough thing to understand, but if you can understand that, then you are a good community architect, because then you will be able to, I think, cater to the needs of the people that you are working with. Unfortunately, somehow, maybe because of class backgrounds, maybe because of the teaching processes, this doesn't become an integral part of the thinking of architects. One of the things that I've become extremely against is what is known as originality. You have to be original. Please don't be original, just be good. It'll be much better. And so that changes very much your whole process of planning. If you want to be a Zaha Hadid or Frank Gehry, well, that's another world. I have nothing against it, but that does not create a healthier social environment. It's beautiful, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, there's in the chat Asiya Sadiq asking a question, but there are many Asiya Sadiqs in our list because using the link. So maybe you can make yourself known by raising your hand. That's a tool underneath. And then that will make you panelist. You can ask the question yourself.
No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do
Yes.
I'm muted. जी. Yes. आदाब आरिफ साहब.
आदाब, कैसी हो?
बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ. आप कैसे हैं? Good. Looking good. Mashallah.
So are you?
Thank you. Okay. Nay, I've been reading your paper, the excellent paper you did for the IIED with Arif Parvez and Mansoor Raza, the drivers of climate change vulnerability in Karachi. And I was wondering if you could say a bit about that, because that's expected to be a huge impact on Karachi as it involves, right? The effects of the negative effects of climate change. So, and how that's going to expected to impact on population growth and on exacerbating existing vulnerabilities. So we'll be very happy to hear from you on that.
You are giving me too much credit. I know nothing about climate change.
No, it's an excellent study. No, it was really.
What I have said in that paper essentially is that we are not ready to deal with climate change.
Yes, that's true.
And what I have said in that paper is that what we require, we do not require, for dealing with it, we do not require these great research organizations and these papers and these studies, etc. No, we don't. We require good and effective line departments. Line departments, in our case, are solid waste management, they are drainage and sewage, they are water supply, they are related to building control. These are the line departments. And without these effective line departments, you are not going to manage the effects of climate change. So you can have all these organizations that you are setting up. I have nothing against them. They give people jobs and increase our knowledge also about the subject. But the problem is that they are not going to solve the effects of climate change. We need these departments. And that is something we are not working on. I mean, that is essentially what the paper was about. We are clogging up our drains. We are occupying riverine systems, long list that I have given there. And these are, to prevent this, we need these departments. We don't have them. They're not effective. So in a nutshell, that is what it was. That is why I called it what was the name of the paper?
Drivers of climate change.
Drivers of climate change, yeah.
Vulnerability, yeah.
Vulnerability. So, now, for example, just to give you an example, the heat island effect, which is becoming common in Karachi, what does it require? It requires insulation to external walls,
planting,
and to the roofs, and it requires cross ventilation. We have a good sea breeze. I think that does it. Can your research provide cheap insulation that poor people can use on their external walls and on their roof? And my research tells me that it can only be a paint. It cannot be anything else.
No, and what I particularly liked in the paper was the model that all of you propose for building resilience, which was this 3-tiered model of systems, agents, and institutions. And I think that could be a good way for studying urban space from whatever angle you want to be looking at.
I hate the word resilience. It's the most horrible word that you can imagine. I would rather that those affected by these various changes threw stones and set tires on fire. No, I'm not joking. I'm very serious, by the way. Because we have reached a situation where we literally, globally, do not care about the poor.
Absolutely.
We have just abandoned them. Even if you look at this climate change business, which I've been looking at for Bombay and other cities of South Asia, there is nothing for the poor in them. They don't exist. They would have existed in the 80s and 70s, but today they do not exist. So we have to fight to bring all this back. We have to bring it back. We've got to bring the poor back into the picture.
Absolutely.
COVID, climate change, they have to come back into the picture.
Thank you.
Maybe I can also add to that, because I had a kind of similar thought. And by the way, Arif, thank you very much for your, again, so deep insight in the Karachi developments. But given the facts that you're saying, yeah, we should care about the poor, but in order that the new developments would be able to function, you need that kind of citizens or community of the incremental neighborhoods. You need them in order that the modern developments or like the new developments could function. So it's the city, the whole functioning of the city of Karachi depends of the economy that those kind of incremental neighborhoods are generating. No, so they're not completely separate worlds. I understood. So I was wondering whether not kind of new strategies could be developed in order to link them and to involve those two kind of different groups of interests to bring them together and to build up something. I don't say that it. Don't think that it's literally possible that they collaborate, but think of a strategy where the both communities are involved because they're both needed in order to develop the city.
Actually, the informal sector and the formal sector in Karachi are very interdependent.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And they work together in almost all spheres. The problem is that the informal sector does not belong to the poor anymore. The informal sector now belongs to the richer of the poor. It belongs to informal entrepreneurs who are fairly well-to-do in financial terms. And the dependence is like this. For example, cloth is manufactured in a factory, but the packaging for the cloths is developed in informal settlements. The towels and t-shirts, you can buy them in Belgium, made in Pakistan, are stitched in informal settlements, but it is the formal sector that packs them, puts the label of Nike or whatever on them, and sends them off. Same is true of shoes. So there, increasingly, this link is being created and consolidated. Our problem today is that this development of this informal sector and formal sector link has isolated the working class from the informal sector. It has become the working class of the informal sector. It is their working class. And unlike the formal sector, which employs you through proper employment, the informal sector employs you through contract, 15 days contract, 10 days contract, which even the formal sector has started to do. So you have new forms of exploitation that are emerging, and this is true all over South Asia. It's not only Pakistan. I think we need to revisit, you are quite right, you're absolutely right. We need to revisit these things. We need to look at them and talk about them, because once you start talking, then things get into the politics of things, that these become election issues. So slowly, it takes time, but slowly. And now you have COVID and climate change. How do these relate to these changes that are taking place, especially to global trade now? Global trade has changed substantially as a result of what has happened over the last couple of years. We really do need to look at them, how to bring them together. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there more questions popping up or issues you want to bring in? Maybe Asiya, you want to add some?
Yes, I wanted to bring up the last point that Arif Saab brought forward, and he said we could discuss further. In fact, the two of number 10 and 11. So with the
There
city,
was no number 11. There was only 10.
there were only 10. Okay.
You have invented the 11.
So that's what good students do.
Yeah.
They try to go one step ahead. So the point for the young people, so a city full of young people, and given all this complexity and this population growing and asking, like you were saying, for recreation, for equitable spaces where they can express themselves, what kind of spaces can we imagine in a city where land is so valuable, it's constantly under speculation or encroachment? What hope do we have for public space and public architecture of the future? What kind of spaces can we imagine?
Well, I don't follow social media, but the two girls in my office, they certainly follow it. And that social media is not only the elite, but also the working classes contribute to it in a very big way. And TikTok is the best thing that happened to Pakistan and the younger people in Karachi, I think. We have developed over 300 singers just because of TikTok. So I think this is one space. But coming to the other aspects, you have a lot of spaces in Karachi which are not used, which are not utilized. I see no reason why the amphitheaters in 3 major parks could not be utilized, why permission is not granted for them to be utilized. This World Bank monstrosity of Icon Square that has been built next to your People Square, which has been built next to your university, I don't see why it could not have been a space where performances could take place. So in various parks, and you have parks all over the place, neighborhood parks, I see no reason why children, youngsters cannot perform or get together or have a meeting in these parks. Why is all this banned? There's no reason for it.
But I think when we were earlier having a discussion in the afternoon, you did mention that one reason is the rise of the conservative right-leaning communities and political parties, especially in the center of the city.
Yes.
So, like,
that is one of
how does one reconcile this?
But the right-wing parties are more progressive than the government, by the way, especially in relation to women's rights, if I might say so. No, I think this is something that can be decided upon. It's something that has to come into discussion. If you don't discuss it, then it will not happen. You have to talk about it. You might like to read my a thing that I've just recently written in Dawn. It will come out in the next few days, which is exactly about this. Talk, I mean, open it up. Let's discuss it. And it will lead somewhere.
I think it's about discussion, creating the space for discussion.
Absolutely. And the
That's
space.
my second question, like what is the role of the academia? Because that's where you ended.
I ended there because, you know, the academia in Pakistan is very subservient, has become very subservient to first world. It's not first world anymore, it's called the North now. It's become very subservient to academia in the North. And that is because most of the present teaching staff, unlike before, has been trained in the north. And whereas in pedagogic terms, it has improved standards considerably. But in terms of dealing with the reality of the city, I think we have suffered. I think yours is perhaps the only department that is different in this. But overall, we have suffered. I noticed, for example, in books, listing of books, you don't have South Asian writers and South Asian books. In theses, references are all European, although there's substantial local literature on the subject. I think this is a big loss. Like this, we will not be able to develop our own thinking and our own understanding. And there's something that else, that I think we miss out on. Modernist models have failed to provide housing to our people. Neoliberalism has increased homelessness and poverty. Transport systems, which we have inherited or borrowed from the West, have increased our loans, have enormously increased the subsidies to run them. We've been foolish enough to follow them. These have all been promoted by academia. They have not emerged out of nothing. Our academia has promoted them. Our academia is complicit in their design and in their work. And the world of urban Pakistan consists of numerous trade, shopkeepers, transporters, mandi operators of every kind. It's a city that is, a country that is obsessed with forming organizations. Every trade has an organization. Every bazaar has an organization. And they are constantly promoting their gains. They are constantly promoting their claims and guarding their gains. Where are they in this planning process? Where are they in the studies of the academia? They don't figure. They're not there. Can you really run a city without them? Can you even design without them? So I think these are very big missing aspects. And this is the same in law, planning, engineering. Law is very important. We need to visit all these colonial laws and the non-colonial ones. Some colonial laws are much better than the post-colonial ones. We need to look at them through the lens of ethics, lens of some morals that are above the law.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry to be so emotional about this.
No, but I totally understand. I'm equally emotional about the
reality of the city. I mean, of the country, not only the cities of the
country. So you would say that it's like this class detachment and maybe a lack of research and understanding the grassroots developments, which results in these very unrealistic plans and projects.
Actually, these are not part of the theoretical structure which is followed in teaching. Nobody says go and, I used to say it, I don't know, probably you all still say it, go and talk to the mandi operator, go and talk to a policeman, go and talk to a pushcart operator. I mean, these are the people and their organizations. These are the people who run your city. See? So the academia has to put aside its theorization, these theories for a little while.
Yeah.
Theory, you can make a theory out of anything. If you like, I'll make 10 theories and give them to you. All of them will be perfectly sound. And all of them will be perfectly useless for the situation in Karachi. So I think we need to talk. We seriously need to talk with knowledge, with facts, with figures. But above facts and figures. We need to talk with love and affection.
Thank you, Arsab. I think Han and Marvi also have something to ask.
Yeah. Marvi, maybe?
Assalamualaikum.
Where is
Hi,
Marvi?
Arif Saab. How are you?
Oh, hello, Marvi. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Arsab, thank you so much for this incredible talk. I specifically, I mean, I'm in midst of writing on the whole idea of the new liberalism in Karachi, specifically with outsourcing and writing, focusing on this public-private partnership. So focusing mostly on these last 10 years of projects. And then right now we see this egocentric projects, especially with this, billion trees plantation between federal and provincial, and then turning Karachi green, and what the sustainability of greenness even means, creating green belts along the coastline. So the politics of the land and the sea. But I would like really for you to expand a little bit more on when you talked about public-private partnership. Of course, there's one World Bank, ADB, I understand. But this local phenomena of public-private partnership, which government has started investing in, bringing corporate companies and outsourcing, the most, the example would be Port Grand. But what would you reflect upon public-private partnership more?
No, I think the state has decided, and it has decided that it is not going to invest and it's not going to manage. Okay, I will go as far as saying that let it not invest, let it not manage. But can we have some rules and regulations that can evaluate this partnership? Apart from how much money it has made and whether it has paid back the loan that it has taken or not. Because that is the only way it is being evaluated at present. In the health sector, it is being evaluated as how many patients it has treated and at what cost. But there is much more to it than this, to this partnership. Basically, what has it given your society and your people? Has it made an impact to the overall situation? Has it shown a direction that we can follow, on the basis of which we can say that we have improved conditions as a whole, and this is something we can apply universally in Pakistan? There is no work on this. So I think the decision of the state, you can disagree with it. I disagree with it. Perhaps because I'm just old-fashioned, as I've been told so many times, but maybe. But even if I accept the whole process, I would like to know how has it helped my city, my country, my people. We don't know. And finally, when it breaks down, then the costs go up. Then it's no longer public-private partnership. Then you start charging for health services, for example, which was supposed to be free. So,
thank you so much.
Welcome. You okay? Nice seeing you.
I'm okay, thank you. I'm fine.
You are in Leuven?
I'm in London. I'm at Goldsmith right now.
Okay, all right, good.
I'll email you later. Okay.
Han is in Leuven. Han, you're mute. Han, we don't hear you. Your friend Han is there from.
We can't see him.
No, you're
Han, somehow
muted,
we don't hear you.
but we don't hear you now.
No.
Your sound doesn't work. Now you're muted, and unmute now, maybe. No.
Maybe he's not using internet audio. when it asks you that option in the beginning. Maybe you didn't click that.
Oh.
Yeah, or you can try it with headphones. No.
Yeah, you have to join with computer audio.
Maybe you can one time log in and out again, or type your question indeed. Now we can't hear you, but now also your microphone is muted. Now it's unmuted.
Good.
No.
Typing, okay.
No, it's a pity. You can maybe type it in the chat.
Wait. Oh, he's left. I
He's
was going to try and do a technological thing and call him and then try to project his.
Or telepathy. Or
No, like on WhatsApp and then relay. Let's see the answers.
Okay. No, it's the same thing.
Han, I'm going to call you on WhatsApp. Can you answer my phone? Han, I'm calling you on WhatsApp.
Yeah. Can I ask the question? Is that possible?
Yes, it's happening. We can hear you now. So it's a double kind of.
Hello, Hans. So nice hearing you.
The question is, you refer very often to architects and people in general all over the world who are satisfied, who copy theoretical and practical frameworks as if the world is a globalized world, which of course it's not. My main worry has been with guiding several PhD students in the last few years from Asia, among others, is that they don't know the literature in their own context. And I'm not talking about practical applications, projects, and so on. I'm talking about philosophers, anthropologists, people who have studied really localized ideas on public, private domains, and the combination of two, the commons, as they call it in Britain, but the commons.
Hello? Hello?
No, we lost you again. We lost the connection also with the phone.
You lost the connection?
Now you're back.
No. Yeah, no, it's fine. With the phone, it's fine.
Okay. So Sulak Sivaraksa in Thailand, for example, very well-known philosopher. He's now way in his 80s. No one knows him. Yet he is a very thoughtful philosopher. At the time, I'm guiding a student from Singapore in her PhD. She hardly knows the writings of William Lim. I'm not saying he was the top people, but the Japanese writings, philosophers, anthropologists, they're not known at all. So how come that so little of the Indonesian literature, how come that so little of Asian literature, also localized, contextualized, is known as and is passed on to people who come and study in Europe?
Well, I think the problem here is really with the system of education. I can talk about South Asia. I can't talk about the rest. We developed two systems of education. One was the English, what was known as the English medium, and the other was the local medium. The English medium was really an Englishman's education. And it is the English medium schools, their thinking, their education that has dominated university education. Otherwise, there is a lot of literature in Pakistan on social aspects in the Urdu language, in social aspects, in development issues, in economics, from a very different point of view than what the English medium schools teach you. Also, you have two presses. One is the English press, English medium press, and the other is the Urdu medium press. Very different views on politics, on history, on culture. Now, through the electronic media, they are coming together. And so the English medium schools, school thinking is being changed because of the electronic media, because it is in Urdu, the electronic media, and it is dominated by Urdu. But so far, its impact on culture is very nominal, because its culture is really sort of Bollywood culture, and it's political in nature, most of it, but it offers an opportunity for change. And I think there are people in Pakistan who are trying to use it for that change. I am hopeful that this change will take place. I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime, but I think in another generation, yes, I think it will take place.
Yeah.
That's the very hopeful message that we should wrap this up with, or
That's a sentence we are going to use more and more, not in our lifetime, but for the next generation.
Well, you know, it's like going away in the middle of a film. That's what I tell my children. I'll go away in the middle of a film, watching all these changes, and then you don't know what the end is going to be. Yeah, but
Right.
it's good. But it's good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hans.
thank you so much. Maybe Asiya or Martino, you have some closing remarks?
Martino?
No, thanks very much, but I'll let you concluding, Asiya.
Oh, okay. How does one conclude such a large discussion? But I've been a student of Arif Hasan right from my undergraduate days. And I continue to be mesmerized by his ability to connect the different scales and, really daily life occurrences, the way we lived our lives in Karachi or the way we still do anywhere in the world, to the bigger questions and the bigger happenings, which are shaping our profession and shaping our cities. And yet again today, these 10 points that he brought to all of us, I think just bring all the issues right from the largest sort of overarching issues down to, the lack of open space, appropriate space, and so on. So I think, of course, there's a lot which could still be developed, but it does fulfill the objective which Lilet had proposed this afternoon, which was to open up the reality of the workings of Karachi and, this kind of behind the scenes, what makes big mega cities in the south transform at such amazing pace, but then also how do these cities continue to operate despite a seemingly total governance failure. And I hope that for the students in the audience, it would really open up certain avenues for research and design projects. And, they would continue to work, and I hope we can, have another sequel discussion in which we can maybe go further into the details of some of these points. But thank you so much, Arisa.
Well, thank you very much for having invited me.
Updating also, for some of us who belong to Karachi and know Karachi and are constantly trying to update ourselves on these new kind of emerging realities and how they kind of still go back to some of the root issues that we've learned from you right from the beginning. So thank you. And thank you for organizing this, Martino for supporting the lecture and the corresponding expo. And I hope that at certain point we can have it put up in Campus Brussels and all of you can see it. Otherwise, we will try to share it online, because I think some of that really corresponds to what we've discussed today, and maybe even tries to propose some very concrete solutions to the issues of climate change, changing tradition and modernity, a city which is populated by so many young people. So I look forward to sharing that with you. We are coming up with a book as well, which try to deal with what all you have brought to fore today. And I hope that you will find it useful. Thank you.
If I may only add one thing, Asiya.
Yes.
Maybe just to say that we plan also to discuss more, perhaps closely, the content of the exhibition in a forthcoming seminar on, yes, if I'm not wrong, we said on the 11th of May.
12th.
12th of May, sorry. On the 12th of May at 12 o'clock, the announcement will be spread, but I think it's important maybe to mention, especially for the attendees that might be interested in joining this maybe further discussion that will take place.
Yes, that would be wonderful. I will definitely share the program, and Arif Saab and other participants, friends who are in the audience. It would be great if all of you could join us in furthering today's discussion through really some concrete projects, I would say, or certain concrete ideas which aspire to solve some of these issues from a very architectural, urban perspective. So I will be sharing the details soon for the closing kind of sequel seminar to today's lecture. And I really hope that all of you can join back and we can continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, also to follow up on that very last point, please stay tuned. We'll also have it on the blog announced at the events page, which I just put in the chat. So if you sign up for the newsletter there, then you are really sure that you don't miss other lectures, but also this discussion. And I will keep you tuned on the exhibition coming up. So wishing everybody a great Easter holiday, which we celebrate in these parts of the world. And thank you again so much for this insightful night, which will bring us a lot of thinking over the coming holidays. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.